Welcome to the program. In the second part of our two-part interview with Ray Lokar of Gold Standard Coaching, we talk about the challenges facing coaches today.
And that's what we do, right? We take kids from where they are to where they want to go. And that's an important point. It's not where we want them to go, right? We've got to help kids get where they want to go. When you're working with team sports, you got to do that within the context of, the 10, 15, 50 kids that you might have on your team. But we're still trying to help kids get to where they want to go. So that's the role of a coach.
Our conversation with noted sports performance consultant and CIF championship coach Ray Lokar coming up. Hi, everybody. This is the second part of our video conference we have with Ray Lokar from GoldStandardCoaching.com. You may know him as the former basketball coach at Bishop Milan who won a CIF championship. Now he's got his kids playing, and he's kind of a sports performance consultant now. He goes around high schools throughout Southern California, and in a time in which we've got a little bit of time to kind of take stock of where we are from a mental point of view, from sports performance being as players and coaches and parents. It's a good time as any to start here. So the first video, we talked about players and parents, and that part was very relevant. It's on part one of the video. So now, Ray, let's talk about moving to being a coach. And the first thing we're going to talk about here, the first subject we're going to talk about here is coaches to develop tools to make one or two things happen, to keep and make things happen, and to keep their jobs. This is a big subject here. We can go all over the place. So
for sure,
let's go.
Yeah, we've got to be all things to all people, right? The word coach, it comes from this city in Hungary. That eventually, by the time they pronounced that city in England, it was called Coach, and they made the greatest horse-drawn carriages to travel over the cobblestone roads in Europe at the time, back in the 14th century. And so those were called coaches, and royalty were the only ones that could afford them. So way back then, the word coach was really just a vehicle that took people from where they were to where they wanted to go, and that's what we do, right? We take kids from where they are to where they want to go. And that's an important point. It's not where we want them to go, right? We've got to help kids get where they want to go. When you're working with team sports, you got to do that within the context of, the 10, 15, 50 kids that you might have on your team. But we're still trying to help kids get to where they want to go. So that's the role of a coach. And that's how we serve players. But we also have to understand that we've got to make parents happy too. So having a great collaboration with the parents, that coach-parent collaboration is really what serves kids best. So being able to set that system up where it's almost impossible not to buy into your vision is really where we have the best programs over the course of time. So setting that system up, knowing what it is that you're supposed to do in order to build that program, and then following through and treating kids fairly is going to be equitable for everybody, and understanding that fair doesn't mean equal. Kids earn different things, right? I always say sports is the best meritocracy, right? You get what you earn. And as long as we continue to coach that way, then that's going to put us in a position to get kids where they want to go.
My observations, being part of coaching staffs and now, covering games, and I get to see a variety of programs and how things are done and everything. To me, Ray, the biggest factor for me, or the biggest thing that I always look for from a coaching point of view, if you're a new coach, and this is I'm kind of almost tailoring this to the first and second year coach who's about ready, or maybe has just started taking a program. When it comes to your program, you better have, to me, the biggest thing, better have a well-defined culture. Your standards are crystal clear, and most importantly, you better live it. You just can't talk it. You got to live it every day you're on that you're on that campus and you're in that office.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some building blocks to your coaching career, really. You have to have the technical knowledge, and you have to know your system inside out and out. And, there are so many places where you can get that information now that it's easy for you to put a lot of things together, but they're all disconnected. Technical knowledge is just a bunch of pieces of wisdom, right? Practical experience is what connects all of those together, right? If I was doing a clinic, I've done this before, I had all the coaches stand up and I told them, you're all, each individual, a piece of knowledge. Now, everybody hold hands and see how many different people we can connect, right? That is your experience, right? The first thing is knowledge, then you have experience, and that's being able to implement the things you do. So being able to clearly define that and having the answer at the tip of your tongue is huge for a young coach, right? Regardless of your age or appearance or experience, if you have a valid answer and explanation for what it is that you're doing, that's the first step in convincing somebody that you know what you're doing and that they should buy into what it is, that you're trying to accomplish.
And that's the hardest thing, Ray. And again, that's where, if you're an assistant coach, young assistant coach, you can have that time. If you're with a well-established coach who knows what you're in a great program and a great culture, you could take notes and ask questions, because when you're in the head, it's one thing to be an offensive coordinator or an assistant coach or a pitching coach or wherever. It's another thing when you're in the head coaching seat. You have to, in the tip of your tongue, you've got to know what your culture is. And I think that's the biggest problem I see I would say, and I'm being conservative here, Ray, within the area, there's about 85% of the programs, if I asked them what their culture of the program was, they couldn't tell me. Or if they did tell me, it would be in a very broad brush perspective without getting to the meat of the matter.
Right. And something that they could have read in a tweet on Twitter, right?
Right. Or, there's the old saying, there's 10,000 signs on your wall, in the weight room, but are you living those quotes? Yeah, sure. Again, to me, it's all, what is your culture? Can you tell me what it is, and are you living it? And if you can't do that, man, I don't know how you can win.
Yeah, I think too many young coaches, I was for sure, are too focused on being a head coach soon and doing their own thing. I thought that if I was the one making the decisions, that would prepare me better. But I was making decisions that I didn't know. I learned a lot from mistakes. So latching on to a great mentor, like I said, Charlie Katsiafikis at Pomona-Pitzer, who's one of the best basketball coaches on the planet at any level. Spent 9 years with him, and prior to that, at the very onset of my career, when I was still in my teens, I got to hang around with Mike LeDuc a little bit when he was still at Damien. And when I left Pomona-Pitzer because my oldest son got to high school, had a chance to sit on his bench during the Casey Jacobson years, and had watched that happen up close and personal. So if you have an opportunity to latch on to a really good coach and learn, that's probably the best thing. And like I said, I think coaches are in too much of a hurry to become a head coach. Everybody says life is short. Life is long, right? Take your time and do it right. And make sure that you get that training before you're ready, because you don't get that many opportunities, right? If you take that head job before you're ready, or it's a bad job to take, that goes on your resume pretty quick, and a couple of those built up, and it's hard to get the third one maybe. So yeah, find a good mentor, take notes, and always afterwards think, or even during, what would I do in this situation? I was fortunate when I worked with Charlie that, we would have a banter all game long, and he would say, just tell me everything that you think. I might say no and don't take offense, right? But tell me what you think. And so I would, get a chance to actually coach the game and, make a decision, but it wasn't always acted on because he made the final decision. But I always got to say, we need to put Pablo in for Bill, or we should go zone right now, or, we got to press. So I got to think through what my decision making might be in those scenarios. And I'd encourage any coach to do that, before they move, 18 inches over in baseball or in basketball.
And I think the other thing too, Ray, is that what you're saying is right. With the thinking on the court, philosophy, absolutely, but also away from the court.
For sure.
When you're in, you're able to talk to, or hopefully, the veteran coach, sees that, James here is going to be a head coach one day. Well, you know what? I want to show you something here real fast, because this is going to happen to you when you sit in the seat here, whether it's academic checks, check out this email I got from the administration about this subject. I just want to let you know, because down the line you're gonna see this, and this is how I'm doing it. I'm not saying my way is correct, but this is one way I'm doing it, just so that you can be prepared. So when this happens, you can't say, "Hey, I didn't show you before," and now you're kind of you're seeing it right in front of your eyes.
Because to be honest, a lot of assistant coaches, just because of the nature of high school sports and the walk-on coach, they walk in at the first whistle when practice is ready to go, and they hurry out to either go to a job or get to the club, afterwards, and they don't take that time in the office to find out those things and talk about those things, or spend time around the players and really get to know their players so that you can make good decisions for them. And now especially, right, with the mess that we've got going on where we're away from our kids, we need to get to know kids, and we need to check in and make sure that they know that we care about them as people, not just players, right? When I first started thinking about coaching, I took basketball theory like 3 or 4 times at Cal Poly Pomona. Every time they would change assistant coaches in basketball, that coach would teach the class, and I would take it again. So I don't know if it was Andy Van Winkle or Alan Van Winkle or Andy Stoglin or Dave Bullwinkle, but one of those classes I wrote a paper, and at the end of the paper I said, in order to get your players to buy in, you've got to prove that you are knowledgeable and understand the sport, care about them on and off the field, and give the effort that you expect them to. And if you do that, then players will work hard to be a good teammate, give you their best effort, and listen and try to learn. And so then we learn all this stuff, right? All that technical knowledge that I was talking about. And I'd get folders of information. And I remember, when I took over at Bishop Almont, stepping in with my assistant coaches and dropping that 3-ring binder on the desk and said, this is our philosophy, coach it up. It was a 3-inch binder full of just stuff, right? And we had a good start, and we were going through a tough time in December where we weren't playing well. We were still winning, and we thought that was good, right? But you know what Jim Collins said, good is the enemy of great. I knew that we weren't going to be really good if we continued doing that stuff. So we kind of had I don't know, I'd call it a soliloquy. The kids would call it a tirade in the middle of practice. And, I said, God, you guys are practicing like you just don't care. Right? At least try. Give me some sort of an effort. You're making the same mistake over and over again, right? You're not thinking. And after practice, I went in that little office up on the stage and sat down, and I realized that that's what I wrote in the paper 25 years earlier, and I forgot about it. Right? I worried about all the stuff. I worried about all the technical knowledge, but I didn't really worry about what I felt was the heart and soul of my program, was that kids need to care, they need to think, and they need to try. And if you walked into our gym every day, I hope that you saw those 3 things, right? And, lately you need to enjoy it too, because kids aren't going to work hard and put in that 10,000 hours that they need to get great at something if they don't enjoy it, right? So care, think, try, and enjoy. Those are the things that, I really want to build a program on. We get lost in all the technical stuff. Right. But, build that culture, build that program so that those things are happening. And then everything else is going to kind of follow from that.
I think that, Ray, you're absolutely right. I also want to make an observation here too. And I want to get your thoughts on my notebook. I always say a lot to young coaches, which is don't fool yourself. It's messy. It's imperfect. We're in an imperfect world. We try so hard to be perfect that, it's going to be messy sometimes. And yeah, you're going to make mistakes. It's okay. As long as you learn from it and you move on and you make note of it and you put it in a journal or whatever, you're good. It's not going to look good sometimes, right?
Right. Yeah, there's a Twitter account called Train Ugly, and I love following him.
Okay.
Because it's not, you're going to walk into a gym. You might walk into a gym and you might see all of these great drills, or walk on the field and everybody's all organized and everything's great, or a baseball field and everybody's broken down into different groups and it looks pretty. But pretty doesn't always help kids learn, help kids fight through mistakes a little bit. And you can't just say that it's okay to make mistakes. You've got to live it too, right? You can't say it's okay to make mistakes and train ugly and then, rant and rave when a kid makes a mistake, or start that assembly line of substitutes going to the table, every time somebody commits a turnover or misses a shot, right? Kids need to know that you have faith in them and you believe in them a little bit. I'll tell you, one of the most important segments, I guess, of that championship season that you were talking about, we were playing La Cañada and Tom Hoffman in the finals of the Royal Tournament, semifinals. And guy that ended up being player of the year the next year, Paul Porter, was having a bad day. He was like 1 for 11. And my assistant coach kept elbowing me saying, Ray, we got to get him out of there. And I kept bucking it. And I just turned around and I said, you know what? He's going to have to make a big shot for us someday. And so I let him go, and he was, 1 for 12 or 2 for 13 or whatever. And we lost in the semifinals of some, early season tournament. Well, fast forward, to the Artesia game that you covered, or the next game against Palm Desert in the Pond. He was lights out. He had 7 of our last 9 points, I think, against Artesia in the semifinals. And I felt like, that day we beat the Lakers, they were so good. And then I had a chance to perform, and, had a great fourth quarter at Palm Desert. I can guarantee you that he would not have done that if I had yanked him in some meaningless game and he had to look over his shoulder every time he made a mistake or took a shot.
Comes back to the word trust, right, Ray?
They have to trust you impeccably. And you have to show the trust in them, and then it's a mutual thing.
And that it happens when there's nobody in the stands on that practice court or practice field.
For sure. And you got to put the kids first. I follow this guy on Twitter. His name's Dr. Brad Johnson. He's an academic guy. He's been a principal and an administrator, but he's a great follow for coaches too, Dr. Brad Johnson. And he wrote a book called Put Teachers First, which, is kind of contradictory because you think, oh, you're supposed to put the students or players first. But if the administrators hire coaches that put kids first, then administrators can put the coaches first, and then it trickles down and everybody's got a good quality culture. Right. But when there's that cross-pollination, we try to be all things to all people, then it becomes really, really difficult to do that. So you got to put the kids first. Give you another example from that season. And nobody would ever think of doing this. And this kind of goes to what you're saying about trusting kids and what I said about putting them first. We had a kid named David Pearson. He was a baseball, basketball guy. And if you remember, during that era, Bishop Amat won 2 national championships in a row in baseball. So they were great. And David was a little second baseman and wasn't getting recruited very much in baseball, and that was going to be his sport. And his dad was talking to me one day just about, how he needed to have a really good baseball season in order to get a scholarship. And I remembered that conversation, and we were in the playoff run, and nobody expected us to go as far as we did. And Mr. Pearson said, baseball's starting, and, David is, just hits away from being the all-time hits leader at Bishop Amat. He really needs to have a good season, and we had a good relationship. We talked, and we beat Artesia. Like I said, nobody would expect that. And so we're playing in the finals on a Saturday morning, and they had a baseball game on Friday. And every at-bat mattered for David that year. I knew it did. So I said, David, you got to go play in that baseball game. So he played in a baseball game on Friday, and he was my backup point guard on Saturday. And at the end of the third quarter, it was a close game. It was a 3-point game, 5-point game. He made about a 60-footer, about 10 feet past half court. Again, I trusted him. He trusted me. Ended up making a great play. I don't know that he would have made it if I didn't do those things for him. It sure makes for a good story. But, I think that mutual trust has to happen. And as I envision that play, right, that he got the ball off of a blocked shot from a 6'7" kid named George Balderas, who played about 12 minutes his junior year. Made him my starting center right away because he was 6'7". It allowed us to move John Haywood out on the perimeter because that was going to be his best position for the next level. So, again, trying to put kids first a little bit. George's dad comes to me one day and says, you know, we have tickets for the Super Bowl in New Orleans. And that weekend, that Friday night, you play St. Bernard's. And I said, well, Super Bowl is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. You got to go to that Super Bowl. He says, well, Coach, won't that hurt his status on the team? I said, I'll tell you what, Mr. Balderas, instead of him starting and coming out after 3 minutes, I'm going to start Cesar Rodriguez, who was a multi-sport guy, ended up playing left tackle at Kansas. I'll start him, and I'll bring George in at the 3-minute mark. Is that pretty good? And, yeah, so, you know, did something for the family, pacified the parent. Didn't really make a difference, right? And let the kid go do that. And again, Palm Desert runs a backdoor play. George comes out of nowhere, blocks a shot, goes to Pearson. He makes a three-quarter court shot, and we had the best fourth quarter of our year after that. But just in my heart, I know that kids are going to do everything they can for you if you do everything you can for them.
Well stated. I can't say anything better than that, other than adapting and adjusting. I think great coaches are able to adapt and adjust to situations.
For sure.
We're all figuring it out right now. But the great coaches know how to adapt and adjust, and they have a plan. Yep. They have a plan. Yeah. And they're not winging it. I mean, I think one of the key, in my belief, in my research, so to speak, is one of the things about Bill Belichick, which separates him from a lot of other good coaches, is he has a plan, and he's going to stick to that plan, and he'll adapt and adjust to situations, but he's already thought everything out already. And to me, that's I call getting from that 80% of being a good coach and getting to that 10% to being an elite coach.
Yeah, that's that technical knowledge we were talking about at the beginning, right? You get all technical knowledge, and then over the years, you link that together with experience. You might have the best play available for a last-second shot. And again, been there, done that. I think I was at Western Christian, and we were playing San Dimas in a tournament. They were the #1 team in the Valley, and had a great play that was working all game. But that's not necessarily what's going to work in the last 12 seconds of the game. So we had to make a few passes. They stole one of them, and I told myself at that point in time, I needed to adjust and learn from that, right? I had all this knowledge, but I wasn't able to piece those things together as a young coach. So you need to develop that system and that plan that you're referring to, and go back to what I said when dealing with parents and players is, if you have the answer, right? If you have a system or standards of play and behavior, and you're able to answer those questions, because you have that system put in place, then you're going to be more successful when things don't quite go your way, right? And when things get thrown for a loop, just like we have right now, right? Like you said, coaches are going to need to adapt right now and figure out what's going to happen over the next couple of months.
I want to get to your last point here, Ray, but there's one other, and this stuff just goes through my head here too. The other thing, if you want to keep your job as a coach, having been there before as an assistant, but I've seen it all over the place, you better have great communication with your athletic director, because he's the guy who's hired you. You went through the interview process. You guys are on the same page. I think it's vitally important that every day, in the season, maybe once a week or, twice a week, and in the off season, once a week, just sit down with your AD and let him, keep him in the know what's going on in the program. Now, if he wants to, if you have a retreat, we all have retreats, coaches have retreats, with their staffs or their teams, and they go, if he wants to be a part of it, that's great. He can see it for himself, but communication between the head coach and the AD, that's, in my swing of things and looking at things, Ray, that's everything. Can you hear me, Ray? Oh boy, I think we might have lost him. Oh, there we are.
Yeah, you froze just for.
I freeze for a second. Am I okay now?
Yeah, you're
Okay.
good.
Okay.
Yep.
So my biggest thing, I said, my biggest thing, Ray, is communication and being, just let your AD know what's going on, because there's going to be a point in your coaching career where it ain't flowing, but at least your AD knows what's happening. He sees, hey, there's growth going on despite what the record looks like and everything else. He can tell his administration, hey, let him figure it out. He's good. I know what's going on.
Yeah, and there's a two-way street there too, right? The AD's got to check in with the coach, and I think sometimes they're really, really busy and they don't have time to do that. And with the advent of an increase in walk-on coaches that, like I said, walk into the gym or onto the field as soon as practice is starting and they jet out of there afterwards, they don't often have time to do that. So both sides have to go out of their way to make sure that they check in on each other and keep those open lines of communication. Well, you covered that St. Anthony team. One of the best things I did way back then was hire Andy Hall as my assistant coach, because he was the assistant athletic director, and so he was on my bench. But yeah, I try to keep a close personal relationship with them and keep those lines of communication open so that they know what's going on. But as it goes up the ladder, right, athletic directors are worried about their job too. So they're going to get pressure from parents or the administrator above them, and they need to have the same confidence in their answers about what the coach is doing in his program as the coach has answers for the athletic director about how his program is being run. So it's really, it has to start from the top and go down and then flow its way back up, and there has to be that, flow of communication in both directions.
Final point you have here, Ray, we want to talk about leaders to understand ways to serve each of those groups equitably. So go right ahead.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we were talking about, right? You've got players and you've got parents and you've got coaches and you've got administrators. And as an administrator, is the customer always right? Am I working with parents and listening to them all the time? Or do I put the coaches first, teachers first, and hope that trickles down as it should if I did my administrators have to have that confidence that they can turn around and tell the parent, I have extreme confidence in my athletic director. I'll paraphrase an email chain that I had one time when I was at Bishop Alma. I had a parent, sit down and talk to me about playing time, because it's always about playing time, right?
No question.
Pointed out, some reasons, that you're going to watch this kid play, and he's going to do a couple of things that might, make you think, why isn't he playing more? And then he's going to do 4 or 5 things that are going to explain that, right? So, pointed out some things statistically, and I thought I was good. He fired off an email to the principal, who responded and sent me the response as well on a blind copy, saying that, we're not going to discuss playing time. That's the coach's job. So they had an email exchange. Ultimately, the principal's final, salvo was, it's my job to supervise the athletic director. The athletic director took the time to meet with the coach about the situation. The coach took the time to meet with you about the situation. Coach is dealing with, your son every day. And, you need to celebrate your son's career and teach him those life lessons, which kind of goes back to that thing I said a long time ago. Even if you have the worst coach in the world and you lose every game, if you focus on the character that the kid is learning instead of the competitive aspects, there are life lessons to be learned, and your kid's going to come out of it at the end of the day in better situations anyway. So all of those people have to be willing to have an answer for the people that they serve, right? Administrators happen to be in the middle of coaches and parents. Coaches are in the middle between, the leaders and the parents, and everybody has to, work together and have confidence in their decisions and in their program and in the culture that they've established, that we're making the decisions that are best for the program. not best for one individual, but best for the program.
And that's got to be established at day one, right? I mean, we're establishing that if you're a new coach, that first day you're meeting with your players, and then that opening night with your parents, and you probably have the athletic director, that we're establishing the ground rules here, so to speak. I'm establishing what we're going to be about, what we're doing, how we're going to approach things, in different aspects or whatever. It's got to be crystal clear in that first meeting, isn't it?
Yeah, and what I said about what Gold Standard Coaching's goals are is to help eliminate stress from all of those different groups, right? Parents stress because they're worried about how much their kid plays and their stats and the standings, and if that's going to help my kid get to the next level, right? Which is what they're stressed about, when really they should just be concerned with building character in their kid, making them the best person they can be, making sure that they're a great student, and then everything else will kind of fall in place. Coaches, they have to have that plan, and they have to understand, that their job is to serve the players and the parents, equitably, and we're all going to do our play our role effectively. And same thing with the leaders. But what do people stress about? Coaches stress about losing games, right? Because now parents are going to be breathing down their back, and the administration is going to be there. So now as a coach, I'm worried about losing, when really that shouldn't be my focus at all either. It should be focused on preparing and making sure that I execute this play. So the scoreboard clouds our judgment sometimes in the things that we do. And so really the lowest common denominator, James, is making that correlation between training them to compete and building character. And if we can focus more on building character and worrying a little bit less about stats and standings and results, which are really just comparing themselves with other people, and the only person you should compare yourself is with yesterday's version of yourself, right? So if we worry about getting just a little bit better every day, playing possession by possession, play by play, and working on the next play, then winning and losing is just a function of all of that. I told you that I worked for Charlie Catt at Pomona Pitzer and basically took over right after Greg Popovich left. And I remember Pop came back one time. The first year he came back 3 or 4 times to visit and watch our players. And he said, it's not a basketball game that you're playing. It's 100 games, right? 50 of them on offense and 50 of them on defense. And just like on your schedule, you have to forget the last game and worry about the next game. You have to forget the last play and worry about this play. And so you have 50 plays on offense and 50 plays on defense, and the person that strings together the most the number of those plays is going to go on a little run and create a little separation, and that's going to lead to success. But if you sit down at the beginning of the game and say, we're going to win this game, right, that's too broad a picture, right? You've got to get some of that laser focus, not only on this play, but what, as a player, what is my job on this play? Right? Where exactly am I supposed to be? What do I have to do right at this time? Right? Am I supposed to, shed the blocker and step up on this hole, or am I going to, pursue? And when kids, can figure out, no, I'm going to do my job, trust that the guy next to me is going to do their job, and then we're all going to do our job collectively. And that's how you get to success, not just worrying about the big thing.
I used to call it stacking those days. You want to stack a day on top of another great day on top of another great day. And if you're a high school football coach, it's even better it's even more. This is so advantageous now, because if you're filming your practices, if you have a great day, you can extrapolate 4 or 5 clips from a team period, 7-on-7 period, where the players are doing what you're asking them to do. And see, here's the reason why we had this great day yesterday. It's because Ray, he got an outside look at Ray at the wide receiver position. He gets a great outside release. He does his job. He runs the route the way that the play is designed to run, and he gets the job done. This is those things that we're talking about. And this is why if we continue to do these type of things, we're stacking this day on top of another day, on top of another day, and the next thing you know it's game time. And now the pressure of winning I don't think is no longer there. It's just, We know the standard. We just got to perform to how we've been training to do it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely right. You know, the year that we won, you know, if we warmed up on the floor of the pond with T-shirts that said "solid possession by possession," because that's how we wanted to play. The next year, the back of our T-shirts was "play every play," meaning in practice or games, like it's the fourth quarter in March, right? So if you practice every play, every day, as if it was the fourth quarter in March, then when it is the fourth quarter in March, it's no different than some practice in December, because you're used to playing that way, right? And you play with the same focus and the same intensity, regardless of what time it is. And those are the teams that have developed that culture of hard work that are going to be, you know, successful as time goes on. And that doesn't stop just because you can't see them every day like we're in right now, right? You mentioned film. You know, that's the best way, you know, especially for people, you know, trying to get ready for fall sports right now. I remember as time went on, my film sessions were more, as you said, maybe a string of good plays and highlight plays and things that we did well, instead of in the early days when I would point out every mistake we made. And I would show a bunch of good plays and say, see those things we just did? Let's do those more often, right? Because then they'll replace the bad stuff, right? Do that good stuff, let's do that. You know, then you're really making deposits into that kid's emotional bank account, right? You know, that's the one thing I haven't really talked about is the positivity that needs to happen. And kids need that right now. All sorts of research everywhere says that people perform better when there are 5 times as many positive memories as criticisms or corrections, setbacks, and failures, right? So, you know, sometimes they say throw out the number 3 to 1. That might be the things that you say, but everything creates either a positive or a negative memory. Right now, there's an opportunity for kids to have a lot of bad memories about this whole, you know, experience. So that means we've got to go out of our way as coaches and parents, you know, to create as many positive memories as we can to fill that emotional bank account to where we can make withdrawals when it's necessary.
And I would say this, you know, Ray, we talk about culture. You want to know what your culture is all about? Let's see how your team reacts when the game's on the line, where it's 4th and 1 on the 2-yard line. We're going to find out right now, because the team you're playing against, they're going to give you your best shot, and it's now required upon your team to give it their best shot. And it comes down now to, okay, what's our culture, our discipline? We've talked about it. Well, we are now being tested at the limit.
Yeah.
Someone's going to win.
Right.
Am I kind of on the right path here, so to speak?
Sure, for sure. I was talking to a group of athletes down in San Diego, and there was this football kid that was really talkative and was giving me good impact and input and feedback. And I asked him, you know, when it's crunch time, right? 4th quarter, you know, how are you going to play? And of course, he wanted to say the right thing, so he thought, you know, I'm going to be more. Yeah, I said, so how are you going to play in the 4th quarter? And he said, you know, well, I'm going to play harder and with more intensity, and I'm going to be more focused. And I said, no, you shouldn't be, right? Because if we played every play with as much focus and intensity and effort as we could, and you were doing that from the opening kickoff, it might not be crunch time right now, right? You shouldn't wait until it's crunch time or the 4th quarter to do that little bit extra, right? You should be ready to do it, you know, from the opening tip-off, first pitch, beginning of the game. And when you have that mentality, then you know you're really going to go somewhere. And you know, they could do that now, right? Coaches need to connect with their kids. You know, we had a Zoom birthday party, my son's birthday and one of my grandkids' birthday. They share April 2nd as a birthday, and we had a Zoom birthday party yesterday. We're doing this off of Zoom. My wife is inside tutoring on a lesson over the internet. Yesterday, about 2 or 3 days ago, my son, who's a senior in high school, had a text exchange with Coach Smith at Laverne or at Covina about some college choice situations. And it was just a text exchange that lasted 20 minutes, but I could just see the light on his face, right? I get to talk to my coach right now. And I think that, you know, the coaches that are staying in touch with their kids, are the ones that have that great culture that you're talking about, right? When they're able to see their face and have a conversation, or even just a text exchange and check in, that means a lot to kids. And then, you know, I think the other thing that coaches should do right now is to think about all of those individual skills that they work on in groups and drills, whether it's coaches doing ball handling or shooting or footwork in basketball, or technique in football, or, you know, fielding, soft hands, their swing off a tee in baseball. A lot of those things are really just me as a coach evaluating you as a player one-on-one, right? It's not always competition. Those kind of things can take place just the way that we're talking right now. My granddaughter takes dance lessons through Zoom. Her whole class goes, you know, and takes a dance lesson with the instructor through Zoom. So I think the coaches that are creative, that are able to pivot and do those kind of things now are not going to fall as far behind. And the second thing is, I think that everybody's got to understand is it's not that big a deal, right? Like I said, you know, from the end of the season until October 15th at Pomona-Pitzer in Division III, we weren't allowed to do anything with kids. And by Thanksgiving, we were pretty good. So we'll catch up. Don't stress about it, right? I've got in this beautiful backyard of mine, I've got some little signs that hang that are just wood painted, simple signs that are just to remind me to care, think, try, and enjoy. But some things that mean a lot to me. I've got one that says, "Be here now." And you know, none of these things I made up, but they're things that I say to myself all the time. And I'll say that whether I'm in a lecture, or whether I'm in church, or in a conversation, or whether I'm coaching, right? Be here now. And then I'm able to take as much focus and effort into what it is that I'm doing. And then I have another one that says, "All I can do is all I can do," right? As long as it's all you do.
I totally agree. And I've had a conversation with some people the last couple of days saying, you know, how are you? And I'm like, you know what? You know, right now, you know, I'm just talking from a newspaper point of view, we as prep writers, we're way low on the totem pole. We got news writers who are absolutely killing it. And I've told every coach and every player I've talked to, said, I'm good. There'll be a time and a place when we'll be able to get back to whatever the norm will be, but we'll be there. And when the game returns, we'll be there to cover it and put our own spin on it and everything else. But as I've told people, I said, I'm good. You know, my bank account is fine, and I'm in Monterey Park. I'm not in New York City right now, where, you know, people are stressing, you know, 10 times. So you know what, if this is the worst thing that could happen to me over the next 2 months, I'm good.
For sure. And the other sign, you know, it's funny, the other sign that hangs over my courtyard table, that's the biggest one, is an old Coach Wooden quote that I've actually put in a few yearbooks as well, is that things work out best for those that make the best of the way that things work out.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's a great opportunity also, I think, whether you're a parent, whether you're a player or you're a coach, there are a lot of great books, a lot of great podcasts, a lot, you know, there are many tools today to become a great coach. And I cannot think of a better time right now, Ray, than the present, where you can lose yourself for an afternoon, turn off the TV, you know, listen to whatever is out there and get something out of it.
Yeah, so a lot of times when I'm doing nothing like that, but I'm doing something, right? I'm reading them, or I'm watching a podcast or a video or whatever.
Yep.
You know, and somebody will ask me, "What are you doing?" I say, "I'm sharpening my axe." Right? Just like Lincoln said, if I had 6 hours to cut down a tree, I'd spend the first 4 sharpening my axe. And that's what we can be doing during this time, right? We can, you know, reevaluate, reset, figure out what's important, learn a little bit, help our players get a little bit better with some technology and some creativity, and you know, make the best of what we got.
Ray, where can people find you? You've got goldstandardcoaching.com. That is your website. Where can people find you?
At Coach Loke on Twitter. You want to give me a call or send a text, 909-542-TALK. any of those places are good. And like I said, really, what we try to do is to be that ear and to be that voice to help players and coaches and parents and administrators navigate the process and eliminate as much stress as we can from them to try to deal with it appropriately so that the kids have an outstanding experience, not only in competition, but in life as well.
Ray, I can't thank you enough. Just people, you understand, these are conversations that me and Ray have when we're not on camera. The only thing that's missing is a cigar and some kind of a refreshment, and we're just, and we just throw things off of each other. And it's, sometimes, there may be a subject about what we're talking about where I may have a slight different take than what he does. He may have something different than I, but at the end of the day, we're all learning from each other. And I have a very, very strong feeling we're going to be doing this again in a couple weeks. Just talk about some other different things that, coaches can do as we're kind of, moving through the process and everything. Ray, I can't thank you enough. I appreciate all the time and everything, my friend. I'm still waiting for my championship ring from Bishop Amat from 2000. So whenever, if you want my ring size, I have it. Jocelyn's has it on file. So, when you feel like you want to throw one my way, I'll be more than happy to, but it is great to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you too. I always love talking to you, and they're a little tight with their purse strings. I'm not sure about that champion. John Governor helped me in the preseason. I had some health problems. So as soon as I get Johnny, we'll be next in line.
Thank you, Ray.
All right. Love you, James. Bye.
Love you too, man. Thank you. I'm James Escarcega. Thanks for watching, and stay safe.